Amy, how are you?
My state of mind is excellent.
Yes. I've had so much wonderful feedback from that statement. Loads of
I
people
hope
enjoyed
I
last week.
hope people are having fun with that. I'm so glad. It's always the same. My state of mind is excellent. Everything else could be falling apart, but my state of mind is excellent.
And yeah, thank you so much for coming back. And like I've just been saying to you, it made so much sense to me during the week. And one of my favorite things is like looking back on a sequence and seeing it collapse and make sense now. And there was so much inspiration that came from looking at the workbook this week, and a lot of these lessons are about collapsing the sequence of time as well. So everything sort of fell into place, and I was like, that's why I was sensing this thing to ask you to return. And then obviously you've had a few different things come to you as well during the week, which has given us the nod to know that we're doing the right thing to continue the conversation. So how lovely is that?
Yeah, it's wonderful. It did feel like we were in the middle of a conversation,
Yeah,
and it was more of a to be continued than a goodbye.
yeah.
And then I felt inspired by you to do a little work on my websites, and I was able to resurrect a website of mine called mysticsandmasters.com, which has a few interviews on it that I think people would enjoy with Rupert Spira, and probably my Muji interview is there, but also Will Johnson and Zenith Virago and some really amazing people.
Mm,
Um, so that happened out of our conversation just from talking about creativity.
wow.
And then I remembered some work I've done that I hadn't even mentioned to you. My big online course, Work in the Workbook, which is all about the workbook lessons, and then sort of a companion book of blessings that
Mm,
came through me called Sweet Dreams of Awakening.
mm,
And and then you had this experience of those particular lessons, I think 106 to 110,
mm,
feeling like the collapse of time, which is the miracle, another way of talking about it.
mm,
So yeah, it really felt like we were vibing,
mm.
whether we were talking or not.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was thinking to myself, what am I going to do next Friday? That'll be like I'll be missing Amy. It'll be like
Oh.
3 weeks on the bounce now. I'll be like, hey, what am I going to do? So yeah, fantastic. And again, I've not really focused on the workbook in the podcast, and as you know, a lot of the motivation has been about application of these principles, and some of my notes about tonight's conversation with you has been about, again, reaffirming those thoughts that I have about not just wanting to focus on the theory and the theology. And oh wow, there we go, now we know we're in the zone. Right.
This is my nice little back pillow, but this is my buddy,
Beautiful.
Smudges.
I love it. He's he doesn't even know that he's being broadcast across the Atlantic Ocean.
Completely unself-conscious.
Yeah, wouldn't be interested if he knew. He's so in the moment.
That's true.
Yeah, so it even made me think of. Oh, I closed my eyes and I didn't see him. It even made me think of self-study, and thinking of that in a different context, because the study of the self rather than just self-study as in the solitary. I guess I'd always thought of it as like the solitary activity of the self-study of A Course in Miracles rather than the study of the self as well. So I think yeah, a lot came from last week. There's a lot to carry on, and there's a lot of interest in freshness as well, in terms of like not having focused on the course itself as a book, whereas finding a context to think, yeah, okay, I can see that, because it's about the experience and the gateway that the course literally opens for us when it shows us a deeper connection with peace, isn't it, really?
Well, you're intriguing me with this. It's a self-study, but you didn't realize it's a study of the self.
Mm,
And also your study of the text, am I getting it right that that felt like application to you?
yeah.
You weren't just studying theory intellectually, you were having an experience
Mm,
through that reading.
mm,
And yet it's funny that the workbook is the actual application, the daily application that the course offers. So that's funny. And um and then I'm not sure where you left off, but that's what I was hearing, when you're
yeah.
sharing this. So
Yeah. So I think I get a little leaflet in my I've just shown you of my what should be green, but you said looks blue.
it looks blue, even though you're telling me it's green.
Yeah. So this little leaflet that comes in there, that's where it talks about it being self-study. And literally until this week, I'd always just thought of that in one particular way of like, you study it on your own by yourself. It's like without thinking of studying the self. And then looking at the lessons, and like you said, from 106 to 110, they're very much focused on presenting us with the realization that there's a collapse to the sequence of time. And then doing some more research with your material and seeing your interviews, and the Rupert Spira one, it reminded me of a video. I think I've probably posted it on the playlists on my channel, and somebody's asking Rupert about here and now. And he says to them, this is one of the last concepts to go when you're deconstructing your ideas about the self and life. And he really does this beautiful little exercise with her. And he sort of basically says, uh, to cut the story short, he basically says, have you ever had an experience that wasn't now?
Yeah.
And she again gives us some examples of then or this. It's like, no, no, now. And have you ever had an experience that wasn't here, that was there?
Yes.
And just pulls it all back to here and now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the lessons,
Oh,
having
well, let
this,
me let me just chime in and say
yeah.
I've had I've had this experience of uh, when you're watching a video and there's a little line at the bottom and you can see the time moving through the video.
Mm,
So let's say you see it's a 30-minute video and you start at 0 and then you're at 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and it's moving along. I had this experience of realizing that time is moving through awareness, the Son of God,
okay.
to use coarse language. So the Son of God is in a timeless state,
Mm,
and then believing in ourselves as a body and a person, what's happening in our imagination is actually that time is just moving across timelessness, so to speak,
Got
so that it, interestingly, it gave me a grok. I think we used that word grok last time.
it.
The like a complete comprehension in that moment that what the course says about past, present, and future is all in the past, and it never really happened.
Yeah.
But it's complete. When the Son of God had this imaginary make-believe uh, descent and fall into identity with the ego,
Mm-hmm.
everything happened in that moment. There was the Big Bang, the world and all the other cosmoses were created, every single permutation of a person, place, and thing, animals, all the stories, everything, past, present, and future, and it's done. And somehow, if, anyone listening right now and you can just vibe with me on this sense of being timeless and having time just sort of move through and across horizontally, and stage left, it's gone.
Mm. Wow. So that again, things tying in together. I know you'd enjoyed looking at the website that I've got for my band and the
Warm rain.
infographics. Yeah, for the Warm Rain. What is it? Warmrain.band. And the infographics that I had made for the album.
Those infographics, I was so impressed. I couldn't even fully understand them. I told other people about them. I said, you have to look at these.
Amazing.
Tell me more about those. Well, really, it would be good if you could show them, if
Yes, if I was that tech savvy.
people just have to go to warmrain.band.
Exactly. What a shame for them. So, yeah, it uses a science term about the arrow of time and entropy being the measurement of decay, which is what shows you that time, in a sense, as you said, goes from, let's just say, left to right, from birth to death. And there's a fantastic physicist who, if he wasn't as well known as he is, he'd be laughed out the park. But because he's such a major player, people have to sort of take his idea on. And he talks about light being something that doesn't have any mass. And he talks about mass being the clock in the universe. So if something has mass, then that dictates the arrow of time going from its peak to decay. It's entropy. So if it hasn't got any mass, then there's nothing to decay. So therefore, you could have a particle of light called a photon, which existed 10,000ths of a second after the Big Bang. And you could have another particle of light, which was 100 billion years after the Big Bang, but there's nothing in them to decay, to therefore be a clock in this physical universe. So that kind of like is something that can exist outside the arrow of time. It's not restricted to that movement. That it's seen as quite perverse, this measurement of decay. They kind of know, it's almost tongue in cheek, with entropy of just like, we're measuring the decay of something to point to the fact that, one example would be a house can crumble into a pile of rubble, but because science is what it is, they also have to allow a tiny little point of a percentage to say there is a chance that a pile of rubble could become a house. Even though it's very, very unlikely, but because it cannot be completely discounted, they have to have 0.01 of a percent that says the arrow, it could run that way. Or
Is that sort of the anything could happen percentage?
yeah, I suppose. Another thing they like to say is if you put an ice cube in a cup of coffee, a hot coffee, then the ice cube will make the coffee go cold. But equally, you have to hold back this tiny little fraction of a percentage to say it could travel the other way, and it could make the hot coffee could make the ice warm. It's unusual.
Well, if I take that back to A Course in Miracles, it it makes me think of when I finally realized, and this was from Ken Wapnick's teaching, that separation, initial separation in the mind,
Mm.
the belief that we separated from God, miscreated space,
Mm-hmm.
and then sin, guilt, and fear are actually what time is. So sin, the belief in separation, is the past.
Mm.
Guilt is the present feeling of responsibility. Yes, I'm responsible for this, guilty as charged. And fear is I'm going to get punished in the future. God is going to seek vengeance, track me down, and do something terrible to me.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to me to find out that time, past, present, and future, is actually sin, guilt, and fear playing out.
Mm.
And space is really just that little gap that A Course in Miracles talks about that seemingly proves that we've separated from God mind, which can't actually be done
Mm.
because life can't contain death and wholeness can't contain separation and division. However, we being children of God, we have a very vivid imagination and we're very convincing. But isn't that an interesting take on time? That it's not even really time at all. Time is a device to prove sin, guilt, and fear.
Mm. Just to take our attention away from present moment awareness, because then the
Yeah.
decision maker would choose against the ego.
Yes. And so it feels like the ego is just really skipping. It keeps skipping past to future, past to future. And that's why in the present, we're so distracted,
Mm.
preoccupied, speedy, or like Eckhart Tolle says, we're sinking below thought, which is oblivion, going unconscious, watching, Netflix binging,
Right. Yeah.
guilty, taking naps, all the things that getting drunk, whatever we do just to still the mind, but in an ineffective way, in an ego way. I
Mm.
like how Eckhart talks about rising above thought or sinking below thought,
Mm.
that there's a way to rise above. And I think the Course would call that, rising above the battleground,
Mm.
for instance, or it talks about, climbing the ladder back.
Mm.
Although I like how the Course also says sink down and inward, and they're both equally effective. They both
Mm.
take you to the same place,
Mm.
you know, um, even though they're going seemingly in opposite directions, but they're both vertical,
Yeah.
sink down and inward or climb the ladder, both vertical, which
Yeah.
feels like a collapse of time.
Wow. And he does make quite an emphasis on vertical axis, doesn't he? Because, I think quite early on in the text when he's saying, we're all the same, but I'm closer to God on a vertical axis. We're all on the horizontal axis of equality, if you like. But he's just,
That Jesus is saying something to that effect early in the Course.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Right. He says we're all the same, we're all equal, but as your older brother, you would do well to obey me. But that word obey is used, in a poetic sense of, follow my lead because I know what I'm doing and you don't.
in your history of your psychology qualifications and your work, what what evidence have you seen? Like, I'm always amazed by people's bravery who go through life without any faith. And I love it when people are inherently good. And that, if you think about the Abrahamic kind of model of God, the angry sky daddy, waiting for you to make a mistake so he can send you to hell, and how people kind of have this, oh, I'm being watched, I better kind of like do the right thing. And then when you have people who don't feel they're being watched, who aren't racking up credits for an afterlife, when they come from a place of just kindness and beauty and goodness, I find that really, really beautiful and attractive. And equally, I find myself very kind of like, I know we should, he sort of purposely says we shouldn't be in awe of one another because we're equals, but awe is the word that's coming to mind, when you just think, wow, it's so amazing that you navigate this life, this scenario without faith. You're still good people. I just wondered how that come across to you professionally.
Well, first, I'm just going to comment on awe. I like I like using the language of A Course in Miracles. So I do like that awe is reserved for our feeling towards God.
Hmm.
And what I would replace awe with in what you just described is the word impressed. I
Right.
notice that I don't like to use the word proud. I, I don't say I'm proud of somebody very much, but what I am is I'm impressed with people,
Nice. Yeah.
and it's a beautiful feeling to be impressed, to
Mm.
be admiring, to be appreciative.
Mm.
So my sense is that people who don't have faith in God, and I don't think this comes from my professionalism,
Mm.
or I think it probably led to my profession, that this is my view, is that we all have that inner spark of light,
Mm.
the memory of God within us, that it's impossible to lose entirely, and that those people are spiritually mature in some way, so that they have a center, that center has integrity or a sense of what's right and wrong,
Mm.
which I mean that in the sense of kindness, essential kindness towards people, not a cultural sense of what's right or wrong in your culture is different than my culture. No misunderstandings. This is tapping into our essence, and you could be an atheist and have no faith in God and still have a connection with that inner goodness.
Mm.
I think Plato's word for God was the good. So the goodness inside, which is, just one O away from God. And let me just think about in psychology. When I was in my Gestalt training, the teachers there emphasized that we had to find something that we liked about our client, even if we strongly disapproved or were offended by their behavior, or else we should not work with that client, that it would not be responsible to work with a client that we truly disliked and couldn't get past that.
Mm.
And interestingly, I don't know if this relates, but it is mentioned in the psychotherapy pamphlet, the supplement to A Course in Miracles, that if at some point in time we were charging our fee was not high enough, and we started to notice that we hadn't raised a client's fee after a long time or something like that, and we detected a resentment within ourselves, that we shouldn't keep working with that client while having a simmering resentment, that we had to find a way to discuss the fee, even if my issue as the therapist was I was afraid to bring up money or whatever it was. That was my issue. I had to go work on it with my supervisor and a group or my therapist, whoever, because it's not fair. And that's that essential goodness inside, to work with a client who I resent, but I'm not talking about it. It's not out in the open. So it's going to taint the work. So that's integrity, having self-awareness and a sense of integration around what I need to do to remain honorable with my client.
Mm.
And I always like the word honorable, Leon,
Mm.
rather than professional, although I believe in professionalism, but I think most of that is being honorable. So if we suss that out, I guess I'd have to look up the word, but honorable goes beyond professionalism. It's not just, you know, rules written in an ethic book. It's an inner light, that beams the right direction, you know? It's that inner knowing of right and wrong again, without religion, without philosophy. It's at our essence. And that's why it is possible to use anger in a constructive way, because there's a way to feel anger without hostility. In other words, anger is coming up for me, and my desire is not to punish you, it's to uh, energize this situation and bring it out into the open and process it together and come through it in some way that serves us mutually.
Mm. Yeah, almost like a passionate kind of fire, really, rather than something that needs a direction or a judgment or whatnot. Just literally turning the dial up a bit.
yes, rather than projecting anger out
Yeah.
and just maintaining the whole ego projection, to reel it back in and own it, and then find out, how can this too be useful? I don't have to reject it or deny anger.
Mm.
I can just stir it within with the help of spirit, with guidance and direction, and be surprised at how it's expressed, and who I can do that with safely, and who I would choose not to. And if
Mm.
I do make a big mistake, to find out, but even there, something fruitful can come of it.
Mm. Yeah, because excuse me. I think there's like I like to like strip things back and almost sort of take away the Course in Miracles aspect or the spirituality and get back to a core with things and sort of say, right, what's at the root of this, And if people are inherently good without faith, without that model of faith where they feel they're being watched or racking up the credits, because those people are also in my observation, they're sometimes inclined to sort of polish their own halos in public as well, and kind of, say, I'm doing a lot of work for charity or whatever. Whereas it's like, dude, keep it quiet if you are, and that's a bit more noble. But I like to say to people at the end of the day, when you're brushing your teeth and you look at yourself in the or yourself in the mirror, you want to love that person that you see watching you brush these illusory teeth in this illusory moment.
Yes, yes, Leon. Like Rupert always comes back to, what does everybody want? They want to be happy. He
Mm.
uses the word happy. And
Yeah.
I love Rupert, but I wasn't vibing with the word happy. And I kept feeling like, well, that wasn't what I wanted on a personal level. What did I want, Leon? I wanted love.
Love.
I wanted to feel that I was lovable because I had a deep, deep sense of shame. Very creepy, very like maggoty and wormy shame in the body, that I do anything not to feel it, but it was there. It was persistent because I was getting in touch with the truth of the ego.
Mm.
And I wanted to feel that I was lovable, and also that my love would be accepted, because in my life, I felt like my love was irritating to people, that I was bothering them. And I felt ultimately like I was bothering God, that my orientation toward God was the man in the sky, and that I shouldn't bother him. So if I were to reach out, I would be swatted away.
Mm.
So um, getting in touch, there's a beautiful line in the chorus, 3 lines or something about, we are lovable, and darn it, I should be able to find that, and I'll look around for it. But it really hit home with me. I was like, oh my God, Jesus is telling me that I am lovable. I am lovable. And if I am lovable and I'm feeling that, all I want to do is love. It's like when you fall in love with somebody and all of a sudden you just feel like sharing love with everybody in the world. You feel like one of those movies where you want to skip through a park and, throw flowers and kiss everybody. You know, Everything changes. There's this overflow of goodwill. Yeah. So love is very important.
It certainly is.
And self-love.
Mm.
That self-love it's so fundamental to healing. Looking in the mirror and liking yourself is a really big deal, and most people can't do it.
Mm.
But people are drawn to people who like themselves.
Mm. Yeah, I told my wife about this during the week because we had or we do have an interesting book. I think it's like a couples therapy book, and it said something like people are drawn to people who make them feel good about themselves. There's one of these kind of statements that again, like I'm sort of suggesting really, when you strip everything back to like what's at the core of this, and we, you know, we talked that over a lot and thought, wow, isn't that fantastic, and discussed it. And then during the week I said to her, your angle is like, people like it when somebody likes themselves. Is that what you just said? Sorry, was it people?
Yeah, because I think what we were talking about was when there's an inner feeling of self-acceptance
Mm,
and appreciation for the person I am,
mm,
I'm more lighthearted and I'm much more confident. I'm not easily
mm.
offended. So I bring a presence to the room
Right, yeah.
which makes people feel safe.
Mm,
People who like themselves aren't judgmental.
mm,
You know, there's just there's an inner humility, a healthy humility, you know,
mm,
an ability to laugh at oneself and laugh more easily in general. And also, our attention is fuller. We're
mm,
more able to be with somebody when we're with them.
mm,
You, you'll hear about some people that when I was with him, I felt like I was the only person in the room. His attention was on me,
mm.
you know, or I'm always tickled in the movies, you know, if there's a character who, let's say the girl slaps him across the face and he says, I had that coming. You
Mhm.
know, to me, that's someone who likes themselves, who can say, yeah, I know, I totally screwed up and I can tolerate that hit. To me, that's turning the other cheek. You can't let them keep doing that, but you can take a hit.
Isn't that interesting? Because that comes back to what you're saying about sin, fear, and guilt as well. Because if you are in the mirror looking at yourself and you do see yourself as lovable, you're in the moment, and the thing that would stop you having that in your awareness would be the ego trying to project your attention to something in the past that you've done, which you should feel the shame in the moment for, which means you're going to repeat that unworthiness in your behavior in the future.
You know, that's interesting, Leon, because you're reminding me that when I was a little girl, sometimes I would gaze into the mirror.
Mm,
And my mother had this dressing table that was fascinating to me. And sometimes I'd sit in that chair and just gaze in the mirror, and something hypnotic would happen where I I think what it was that I felt that the image was gazing back at me. And that image was communicating a message to me that said, everything's going to be okay. It was an all is well, all is well, no matter how it appears, no matter how upset I was with my family situation as a little girl. But in that moment, there was some flip. And you know, Louise Hay does a very potent love yourself exercise in the mirror.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, yeah, Louise Hay, who's you know so well loved and in the 80s worked so powerfully with the gay community. And I think that's where she started this practice to look in the mirror and say to yourself, I love you, and see what that brings up, which is usually a lot of self-hatred at first and a lot of, didn't like, no, I don't love you, you
Yeah.
know, and to work with that until you can actually genuinely say to yourself in the mirror, I do love you and I want what's best for you and I
Mm,
want to come through for you. And
mm,
I don't know what I'm doing, you know, but I'm here.
yeah. And again, these ideas that are beyond a spiritual tag, or yes, it's, yes, we're talking about the essence of what A Course in Miracles explains to us, but equally, I love this stuff because I love playing with it like a sport, with people who don't have a spiritual awareness on their radar. I like to try and communicate to their mind in my conversations, be it at work or whatnot, where I know I'm interacting with someone and my objective is to speak to their mind with a capital M and to present them with something that will bring them some redemption or liberation or expansion to their awareness without them feeling threatened that I'm trying to present them with something that might be like indoctrinating them, or the traditional perspective of like religion, spirituality. It's like I find these cores, as in core, this sort of core element to what there is to express to someone, so that they can take it on board with their defenses down, and then watch that take effect in their mind. Because essentially that is what A Course in Miracles has done for me. And coming back to what we were saying earlier, when we think of the theology, the theory, the reading, the book, the study, it's the end game of that is for the experience of being and knowing and seeing that peace works. The gateway, the signposts, if you follow them, if you implement the journey, it works, because you see the results in how you feel and how your enjoyment of life increases. So I like to find things that I can talk to people about who aren't spiritual, but get to that core of the spiritual principle, put it to them in a way where they don't feel threatened, and then just watch how universal the truth is, really. Because people
Well,
then.
I find that an effective way of doing that is to use I talk. So if I speak about my experience and I share what happened inside me, then I'm not threatening anybody.
Mm,
I'm not saying you should do this, you should think that, have you thought about this? I'm not doing anything except saying, here's what's happened for me.
yeah.
And
So the direction then of your expression isn't me going, I'm not putting it on Amy. So you're like, what? I'm just talking about me here. And interestingly, yeah, that's my lyric writing. Now you say that, I wouldn't write a song that says you need to think like this. I would write a song that said, I thought about this the other day. And then that allows someone to go, oh, wonder what I think of that, without any imposition.
exactly, exactly. You know, I'm still kind of thinking about the self-study course thing. And all these years, when I've heard A Course in Miracles described as a self-study course, I don't think it says that anywhere in A Course in Miracles. Um, it's the way I think Ken and maybe Judy Scotch described A Course in Miracles.
Okay.
So just my personal experience, a self-study course. Well, a self-study course means I don't have to go to a school. I
Mm,
can do it on my own. But the first thing the course tells me is you're going to do this with me, Jesus slash Holy Spirit. So for me, it never felt like or you could say it's the study of the self with a capital S.
yeah.
So, okay, it's a study of the self with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Because for me, if it's just a self-study course, I think it triggers lonely feelings like, oh, yet another thing I have to do all alone. Like, no, I don't want that. Um, and it's not even like a study, it's a mind training. So my approach to the course was, without anybody telling me this, that the words keep reading kept coming into my mind. If I didn't understand something, keep reading. So it was a sponging. The reading was not just, let me look this word up. I don't know what that meant. I need to understand every sentence. They're not really linking together. There was an allowing somehow of, I don't need to pay attention to this as I read it.
Mm,
And that felt guided because later I'm sure I heard other people recommend reading it that way. And I was like, oh, yeah, that is how I read it. Every once in a while, something would come up that took hold of me, a
mm,
click of recognition,
mm,
like the forgiveness prayer in chapter 3 that says it's just a request to recognize what you already are.
mm.
Boom, I was just Oh, and from then on, I prayed that way. And if I was really scared and I needed something, like, God, please heal my cat, then I'd say, Jesus, I'm too afraid to only say, help me recognize what I already am. But that's what I'm going to go for as sincerely as I can.
Mm.
And I'm so scared that I have to throw in, please help my cat. And then I just go back to, and my priority is to recognize what I already am. So there was a lot of oscillating like that until the recognition prayer became clearer and clearer. And then I found out that when Helen was asked to pray for people, she always prayed the same prayer. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, help this person recognize what they already are.
Mm.
So it wasn't like heal this person of cancer and help this guy get a job. And
Mm.
so if people asked her to pray for them, if she said yes, the prayer was always the same for everybody.
Perfect.
Right. And I often feel like that. I start off praying for one person in particular, dear God, so and so is going through this very difficult time. And please, I come to you asking that this becomes an opportunity for them to feel the peace that passeth understanding. That
Mm.
might come out of me towards that person. And then I get the urge to throw in, and could we also do that for, Leon and this one and that one and that one? And while we're at it, everyone and everything everywhere.
Brilliant.
There's this urge to include everybody.
Wow, what a beautiful urge. And that's really interesting because, sometimes I've struggled with like phases of even engaging in prayer as an act in a way of like, well, what do I say? What needs to be said that isn't in hand? And just it feels like a really narrow bandwidth to navigate between, to articulate, because it feels like putting everything into some sort of form, which is the formless, immeasurable reality of everything, and trying to get it into a little tiny form. And it's like, yeah, I've definitely been through phases where it's not like I would say, what is the point from that perspective, but almost like, well, what's the point without it being negative?
And then what happens?
I don't know if the word deference is the right sort of word, just a sort of like a sense of just removing yourself from the equation, or that removing your investment in that part of your mind that would have felt that it does need to do something, and it does need to take the reins, and it does need to ask. Whereas the truth of it is so counterintuitive to that aspect of your mind, because it's like, well, no, I'll just step over here, watch it all go by. Like he says in that part of like, watch your thoughts go by like some weird procession.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
just know it's not for me to do in that sense, just for me to not do.
Yeah, that's what I love about the course. One thing is all of the negatives, double negatives, and triple negatives.
Yeah,
So that's your unhook to realize that you don't have to do.
yeah. So I'd like you to show us this book of yours, because I've had a look at it on Amazon this week, and it's completely and utterly beautiful to look at.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Harper Wood did the illustrations, and we made the cover blue, like A Course in Miracles, with gold,
Yeah.
lettering. It's called Sweet Dreams of Awakening, 365 Goodnight Blessings. And there are two editions. I would say get the second edition. It says forward by Gary Renard.
Mm,
And my thanks to Gary for writing in a forward for me.
mm.
And it feels like I was given the blessings. What's interesting to me about this book is that it's meant to be read at night and blessings are laid upon you. So you're not doing anything. You don't have to pray. You don't
Mm,
have to do an affirmation. You don't have to work your lesson of the day, although these are linked to the lessons of the day. That's why there's 365 of them. And I'll just open the book. So every page number relates to the lesson. If you're on page 131, that relates to lesson 131.
mm,
It's like a distillation of the lesson. And if you're working the workbook and you want one final sort of imprint before you fall asleep, you could read this lesson and sort of let it lay itself upon you.
mm,
And the message I got is that it's called Sweet Dreams of Awakening because it's meant to prime the mind for awakening while sleeping at
mm,
night.
mhm.
Of course, we're also sleeping during the day and we don't know it.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes people use the catchphrase lucid dreaming, that you could apply lucid dreaming to our waking hours and say that course students are interested in lucid waking so that we can walk around saying, I know I'm dreaming right now. It feels very real, but I'm getting the hang of it. So anyhow, yeah, this book feels very beautiful to me. And when I look at it, it doesn't feel um personal to me. It doesn't feel personal. I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, that happened. And I sometimes I keep it on my nightstand and I use it like I would encourage anybody else to use it, so you can use it along with your lessons, or you could open it to any page and you could look at it in the morning, it doesn't have to be at night. It's um yeah, and every single blessing ends with the words sweet dreams of awakening.
Mm. Sweet dreams are made of this.
Yeah, yeah.
So, further to what I was saying to you earlier about, feeling drawn to talk about some of the lessons this evening, um, maybe you'd line your book up with us. So I'm on lesson 106
Oh yeah.
in
And
my
that's one of my
notes.
favorite lessons, by the way. Let me be still and listen to the truth.
Wow.
I told you that has a couple of lines in it that are my favorites, but let me go there in Sweet Dreams of Awakening and see what we have.
I'm going to guess that your favorite lines are be not afraid to circumvent the voices of the world, walk lightly past their meaningless persuasion, hear them not. What a guess. It's like I was told before we pressed record.
That was very cute. Those are my favorite words because they're so powerful, they're so anti everything. I just love that.
That's the
Yeah.
New Yorker coming out.
That's right, the New Yorker for sure. So the way this corresponding blessing came through is good night, stillness itself. Listen to the word which lifts the veil that lies upon the earth and wakes all those who sleep and cannot see. God calls to them through you. He needs your voice to speak to them. For who could reach God's Son except his Father, calling through your self? Be still and hear him tonight by listening to the simplicity of truth. Sweet dreams of awakening.
Further confirmation, man, because the thing the one note that I made of this lesson that I put in my folder in preparation for tonight was God needs your voice to speak to them. And that's like so pertinent to what I was asking you about in terms of speaking to people without spiritual understanding on their radar and finding that way to plant a seed for them. You don't do it, when I use the word sport, it's like, just a descriptive term, really. There's nothing for me to gain from it in terms of like a win, other than if they win, if they gain from it. It's just that sense of like, and enjoying honing in on that desire to want to be able to pass something on to someone and to want to see them expand their understanding, because that will lead them to a greater sense of peace. Then they'll have a better life, then they'll have more fun, then they'll laugh more.
I think the voice is your presence.
Mm,
It doesn't take words at all. It comes back to that, loving ourselves. The way to love ourselves is to tune in to that which loves us and realize that we are that stuff. And that imbues our presence. And when I was in psychotherapy training, they told us all the time, trust your presence. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time, but something in me did listen to that, and pick up on that. So Eckhart Tolle says that, and this happened to Muji too. People started coming to them and just sitting with them or wanting to speak with them, and it was simply because they were enjoying their peaceful presence.
right.
There's a magnetism to a peaceful presence.
Mm,
And then whatever right action is supposed to flow through us will. So sometimes it will be words, but sometimes those words will have nothing to do directly with, wanting to plant a seed or activate a seed that's always there.
mm,
We might know because we're attuned to that person to tell them a story or
mm,
to do something mundane like, let's have a cup of coffee uh, or sometimes, to touch the wound gently, go right in there. You have to be attuned to the persons. For some, saying there's an elephant in the room, do you want to talk about it, is exactly what they need,
yeah.
so that attunement is so important. And I think that kind of sensitivity and attunement comes with presence,
Mm, yeah, amazing.
right? Because even though everybody has their own particular, specific story, underneath that, the mythology of A Course in Miracles is the same for all of us.
Yeah.
We're all suffering
Mm,
from a sense of separation, terrible loneliness, aloneness, a
mm,
helplessness, not really knowing how to feel safe, not knowing how to get back home to heaven, home
mm,
with a capital H.
mm.
And then we're all layering that with denial and trying not to feel uneasy, but it's there, or we're bluster, I feel good, and yeah, no, not really. You don't.
Yeah, because I suppose if you think to teach is to demonstrate, and your mission is simple, just to demonstrate that you're not an ego. And he says, I do not choose my channels wrongly. There's there's no emphasis on whether that's vocal or not, is there?
Yeah, it's really to demonstrate. Just you're remembering the course so precisely there. To teach is to demonstrate. It's to live the love.
Hmm.
It's not sentimentality, not
Excuse me.
emotional.
He's demonstrating, or
He's
she.
gonna take he.
Yeah,
He's gonna take a leap.
a leap of faith.
Go ahead, baby.
You can do it, pal.
We go through this many times a day. He can do it.
Yeah.
Oh, well done.
Look at that tail.
So cute. And now he's going to knock things off the shelf because he's very good at that. But I think he's telling me, he's so smart, he's telling me to let him out. So I will just do that.
Please do, yeah.
And, yeah. You want to go out? Yeah. See, I'm impressed. I'm impressed that he can communicate like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's
But
interesting.
what you were saying about, teach
Mhm.
through demonstration,
Yeah,
that's what A Course in Miracles is all about.
yeah, yeah. I'm just looking at some of my notes because our little ginger friend has given me the opportunity to just look through some of these notes, and it does it does come back to this. There's a small paragraph I've written here. I've put self-identification without concept, without overlaying thoughts and beliefs and perceptions, just looking, just being. Being becomes knowing.
Exactly. Remember last time I told you, sometimes the course gets reduced down to two words for me.
Mm,
And one of those is being with a capital B versus believing. The ego believes, but what we are is being itself. We're beingness.
mm.
That's it. That's another word for presence or awareness or God, just being. And there are clues everywhere, like we're called human beings,
That's right.
human beings.
So when you hear "Let me be still and listen to the truth" as one of your favorite lessons,
Yeah.
it's even there in that.
I like that the word truth stands for God. I like that. I like that things can seem very real here in the 3D world, but that doesn't make them true.
Mm. I've got this bit as well from 106, which I think is fantastic. Thus does salvation start, and thus it ends. When everything is yours and everything is given away, it will remain with you forever, and the lesson has been learned. And I think that's another one of the massive big hitters for me with the course is this to give and receive are one in truth. And again, how that
Mhm.
collapses the temporal sequence, how that
And to receive and give is to is to give and receive. A lot of people don't
nice. Yeah.
feel the vulnerability of receiving, but that's so important. I like this part in 106. Listen,
Excuse me.
today, take a little sip of water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a bit of
Listen
a sore
today.
throat this week.
Yeah, your throat is scratching. Um, it's paragraph 6,
Hmm.
sentence 4. Listen today, and you will hear a voice which will resound throughout the world through you. The bringer of all miracles has need that you receive them first, and thus become the joyous giver of what you received. Listen today, and you will hear a voice which will resound throughout the world through you. That's the demonstration.
Mm.
Bringer of all miracles, the Holy Spirit, has need that you receive these miracles first, and thus become the joyous giver of what you received.
Yeah. Okay.
Naturally, because miracles will just radiate from us because that's the nature of miracles. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to send love and light. What we do is open to spirit and become a clear conduit for
Yeah.
one non-judgmental moment, just one non-judgmental moment, just open and
Yeah.
then it just shoots through.
Yeah.
And then, if we can remain open a little longer, the circle completes itself. And now we're gaining momentum and establishing in that whole above the battlefield
Mm.
mind.
Mm. And that ties in with he needs your voice to speak to them as well, doesn't it? Because it's the same thing.
Mhm. But
Beautiful.
he's always saying, needs your voice, decision maker. He's always talking to the collective Son of God, taking itself to be the ego. And then we receive that on the individual level until little by little we're less and less identified as the person, and something without boundaries is opening for us,
Mm.
and we're expanding into that and relaxing into that. That's the process. One way of describing the
A
process.
beautiful way of describing. And so looking at 107, and your multi-applicable use of the word truth, where it says, truth will correct all errors in my mind. God will correct all errors in my mind.
Mm.
I just thought this was incredible. Can you imagine what a state of mind without illusions is? How it would feel? Try to remember when there was a time, perhaps a minute, maybe even less, when nothing came to interrupt your peace, when you were certain you were loved and safe. Then try to picture what it would be like to have that moment be extended to the end of time and to eternity. Then let the sense of quiet that you felt be multiplied 100 times, and then be multiplied another 100 more.
Wow, that's tremendous, Leon.
It's just so good.
I've read that, I've read these lessons many times, but it feels, to use Muji's word, it feels fresh,
Yeah,
when we read it now, like never read before.
yeah, exactly. That's what it's felt like for me this week, coming back to it. And this thing again, this theme of just like the collapse of the temporal sequence just keeps coming into my mind all the time. The collapse of the temporal sequence. And as you said, the way the ego keeps us in that temporal sequence is with sin, guilt, and fear. And if we're
Yes.
having a moment here where nothing interrupts your peace, when you
I feel, I feel the expansion
mm,
from you reading it, and something just quiets, and I feel more expansive, and that super oxygenated Holy Spirit breath starts opening up and opening up. I think you have a very soothing voice, and that there's a tone to your voice that communicates your presence.
mm,
Um, there's something very soothing about you. Have you been told that before?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful aspect of you, and there's like a nurturing quality, and um, yeah, it's
Thank
really
you.
nice sitting with you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been brilliant to find that people get that from my energy and from my voice, and it kind of makes sense of some of the fact of me being like a vocalist as well, because it's the same principle of using my voice to create a feeling and to be able to touch upon like really difficult subjects for people who are very much caught up in the world, and to present it in a way that they can not feel alone. It's one of my things is, loneliness. There's like 8 billion people, and there's this thing called loneliness. It's just like I
Yeah,
struggle. I struggle with that, and not.
yes, me too.
Yeah.
Sometimes uh, when my husband and I have had a fight, I've said to him, um, so anger is his issue. It's scary for him to get angry, and it's scary for him to feel anger. But I've said to him, if you really get to know me, you'll know that my core issue is loneliness. My ego default would be more to loneliness and shame
Mm,
rather than to anger.
right.
Anger, of course, it's all there
Yeah.
when you really contact the ego. But in this lifetime, my primaries were loneliness and shame.
Yeah. Yeah. People shouldn't be feeling lonely when there's 8 billion of us, but that's part of the dream. So I seem to be jumping forward to 108 here, and I've got because I've got this old. I don't know if it's not. Well, it's a 30-odd-year-old version. I don't have all of the chapter numbers and whatnot. But in lesson,
Oh, your book doesn't have all the paragraph numbers and things?
no.
Right. It was early before the second edition. Okay.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. So what I've got in lesson 108, to give and receive are one in truth. There's a few things that I seem to have highlighted here. I found it really powerful talking about light. true light that makes true vision possible is not the light the body's eyes behold. It's a state of mind that has become so unified that darkness cannot be perceived at all. And thus, what is the same is seen as one, while what is not the same remains unnoticed, for it is not there. This is the light that shows no opposites, and vision, being healed, has power to heal. This is the light that brings your peace of mind to other minds, to share it and be glad that they are one with you and with themselves. This is the light that heals because it brings single perception based upon one frame of reference from which one meaning comes. And again, you know, how beautiful, because that if the temporal sequence of time is collapsed and is irrelevant, again, reading those paragraphs there shows me what my inspirations were during the week, and off the back of our conversation last week, and then finding out that your book relates to the lessons, because this is what we've just been talking about in another absolutely gorgeous way. And maybe you could look at 108 from your book and see what we've got in.
Yeah, okay. I want to hold up the spark
Hey,
light again.
yes.
And I feel like Harper drew this so well because it really gives you that feeling of power. And this is just the spark, you know?
But
That I love how the
center,
metaphor of light is used all through the course.
yeah.
It's so simple, just the metaphor of light. I love it. It's a
Tell you
little
what's so powerful about that image, though, for me, is like I'm really drawn to look into the middle where effectively there's no paint. Is that right? Is the section blank paper in the middle, or is that actually white paint?
um yeah, it's part of the painting.
So it is white paint in the middle, or is
Mhm.
it?
I think so.
Yeah, because I really, although I've got all that beautiful stuff going around the perimeter, all I want to do is look into the middle.
Right, right, right. Well, I don't know. Maybe she did only work around the white middle.
Yeah, gorgeous. So it'll
Some
be
of these.
interesting to see if in lesson 108
Okay,
you've
let's see. Let's
you've
see
been
how it
drawn
came
to
out.
that same.
So yeah, in Sweet Dreams of Awakening, it says, "Good night, unified mind.
Mm,
Light shines away all conflict and reveals that to give and to receive are one in truth. Light dissolves all paradoxes, letting oneness prevail. This night, deliver light instead of darkness. To everyone, offer quietness. To everyone, offer peace of mind. To everyone, offer gentleness. Now, notice that your mind is healed, for a unified mind must receive all that it gives." Sweet dreams of awakening.
mm.
Mm.
This goes back to like 31 years ago, as you know, when you asked me about the course, and the first things that hit me, and it was that all-inclusive model of like whether I knew to articulate that, how many decades it took for me to realize what that meant to me then and now. But it's that, you know, if I there's something so big about that for me, for my own personal kind of script, if you like. There's just this sense of like it has to be all inclusive, you know, any model of spirituality or even religion, even though I don't want to use that word, so I should do because there's a forgiveness opportunity. If it doesn't include everyone, it's like I can't. It's like I can't even begin to listen to. It's like what people aren't allowed, what are you talking about? No,
Yeah.
come on, us lot, not them, not that. It's like, what? What happened
Yeah.
to that lovely phrase, beyond the body, beyond the stars, and shining into infinity forever? There's a great big circle, and it's like, come on.
Yeah, the golden circle of light. I love that also. I think that's in chapter 31 at the very end, or
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that. But
yeah,
I know the section you're referring to. It's beautiful.
exactly. So also what I've got in 108, which seemed to jump off the page at me this time round, because I'm sure next year I'll be highlighting something else. But so yeah, I love the fact that you're saying that receiving and giving are the same, because I'm really attracted. I know that I'm really drawn to people who can accept a compliment, and
Hmm.
something that I've witnessed in my wife, and she can, like, without it being a self-inflating acceptance, she just let it land. Some
Hmm.
people just like, whoa, compliment, poof, incoming, like, oh, to just actually,
Yeah.
when someone allows you to give them a compliment, say, like, for the first time that we, not that we met, but when we went for a drink and a meal one night, not knowing we were going on a date, because we thought we were just going out to, as friends, to have a chat and a nice time and a laugh. I remember saying to her, "You look stunning, and you've got great dress sense." And she was like, "Thank you," and it was like, even then, that felt really nice to just, like, for somebody to allow it to land.
Definitely, because they have accepted your love.
Right, yeah. Okay.
And that's an incredible moment because they've connected with you, they've joined with you, they're saying, I'm with you.
Hmm.
You know, I trust this appreciation that
Hmm.
you're sending my way. It's, yeah, receiving is tremendous. It's a tremendous part of giving. Receiving is giving. I always say when I pet my cat and my cat receives my petting, it purrs. It's receiving and I'm receiving. I gave it love and I'm receiving purrs.
Permission.
Permission to receive. That's cute.
Wow. Love that. Thank you. I'm going to be turning that over for a while in my noggin. So,
And sometimes these days, Leon, if people, who know about the course with me and know about giving is receiving, and if they say something nice to me, sometimes I'll say to them, receiving, receiving.
okay, yeah.
So, they feel me. I'm like, I'm not saying, oh, I love you too. I'm saying receiving,
Mm.
taking you in. I'm taking you in. And
Uh,
that slows down time. I'm not hurrying. I'm not brushing it off because I'm a little embarrassed. Even if I am a little embarrassed,
yeah.
I'm slowing down and receiving.
Mm.
Thank you, receiving.
And you're demonstrating, because you're showing them that their expression of love landed, and it,
That's right. Yeah.
yeah.
Just, with people who know that little language with me, but it's nice to share it with you, all of you,
Yeah.
whoever you are, and say, let's make it a language, receiving. In psychology, we'll say to somebody, to a client, maybe I say something positive to them, and they just go right on with their upset story, and I'll say, let's slow down and rewind a little bit. I just said to you, that was a great effort you made.
Right.
Did you hear me?
Mm.
And a lot of times the client will say, um, not really,
Mm.
because they're so deep in their story. And then I'll say to them again, well, that was a great effort that you made.
Mm.
How are you feeling when I say that to you? Uncomfortable, like, oh, why do we have to linger here? I have more story to tell you. I'm like, well, because it's an indication that you're unable to receive love. If you can't do it here with me, how are you going to do it anywhere?
Wow. That makes me think my wife's obviously not allowed to tell me details about her clients with her therapy, but um, she said, I know she said to me before, when people have told her their story, um, she has a thing that she repeats. I think seems like she does this with everybody, where she'll just say something along the lines of like, "I think you're amazing. You know, you went through all of that, and I think you're amazing." And she said that's the point where pretty much 9 out of 10 people just break down into tears because
Yeah,
they've been seen in that moment. You know, you went
yeah.
through all of that. I think you're amazing to be here, you know. And then then the trust ramps up like, whoop.
Yes, I knew you were going to say that's when they break down.
Right.
That's when they break down. Yeah. And kindness can do that. Attunement, um, real true attention.
Mm,
Uh, it just unlocks something inside, and tears will pour out. And
mm.
yeah, we all need that.
God, it's so inherent, this need to be seen, though, isn't it? And
Yes, it's the interesting, contradictory, paradoxical process of the course that first we need to be seen and we need to own our identity as a person before we're really interested in letting go of personal identity. That whole sequence has to occur
Mm,
because we came here to be somebody. So
yeah,
we've got to be somebody. And
yeah.
even if we're the black sheep and we're the worst somebody in the family, we're still somebody, we have an identity.
Mm.
So, and if we're, the hero of the family, then we're the football star and we're that somebody, but nobody really knows who I am. We all need to go through that process in one way or another.
Yeah, because I'm thinking about the poetry of the mythology of like the specialness and the special relationship and wanting God to see the individual as more special than the whole. And therein is this paradox, isn't there, of like wanting to be seen, but that desire to want to be seen to not be a motivation to elevate you above everyone else or to lower them above you, but to be seen for the oneness, the awareness of perfect oneness that the course would call heaven, really. Somewhere in all of these things that we turn over is the truth, isn't there? Of like whether it's a kernel, a little tiny seed within there, or whether it's the whole fruit kind of thing. It's like if you're looking for what the message is, it's in there in one form or another.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought this was particularly lovely where it says to learn, this is 108 still, and it says to learn that giving and receiving are the same has special usefulness because it can be tried so easily and seen as true. And when this special case has proved it always works in every circumstance where it is tried, the thought behind it can be generalized to other areas of doubt and double vision. And from there, it will extend and finally arrive at the one thought which underlies them all. Which I guess, again, not strangely, I'm not going to say strangely because it's not, but that's almost like what I just said, really, isn't it? Of like,
Mhm.
it's in all of it, really, when we look for it. This.
Yeah. And yeah, you could see right here, by the way, that this was lifted somehow into the blessing, this little
Mm.
triplet of to everyone I offer quietness, to everyone I offer peace of mind,
Yeah,
to everyone I offer gentleness, that
yeah.
it's given back in the blessing so that you don't have to do anything. You're going to receive that now.
Mm.
And the one before it, the little couplet, to give and to receive are one in truth. I will receive what I am giving now. And I
Mm.
would just add to that, I will give what I am receiving now.
I'm
It's the
going to
same.
call that the Amy caveat. I love that. So
I
powerful.
had a career in publishing, so maybe Jesus will accept my revision.
I love that. That's so cool because, again, going back to some of my notes for today, it was like the way the course presents us with giving and receiving, and the way it uses the world's model of giving and receiving as further explanation to itself by saying, in course language, when we give something, it shows us that we're in possession of something to be able to give it, which is obviously love, isn't it? And all the components of love as we would describe them if we wanted to, say kindness, compassion, forgiveness,
Innocence, beauty.
innocence, yeah, graciousness. But yeah, to be in possession, to give and receive are one in truth. I will receive what I'm giving now. I'm in possession of it to be able to give it to you.
Exactly. I'm getting very quiet, Leon.
Beg your
You
pardon?
know, I'm getting very quiet. The magnificence of what you're reading and the essence underneath it.
Mm.
I'm feeling really the, the effect of that, that the cause is love and the effect is love, and love is quiet.
The memory of God comes to a quiet mind. Beautiful. Yeah. So this lesson's terrible. I rest in God. 109. God, doesn't that sound boring? So we skip that one. So what I've got from this, I can't give you chapters, but it's towards the end. So in 109, you rest within the peace of God today and call upon your brothers from your rest to draw them to their rest along with you. You will be faithful to your trust today, forgetting no one, bringing everyone into the boundless circle of your peace, the holy sanctuary where you rest. Open the temple doors and let them come from far across the world and near as well, your distant brothers and your closest friends. Bid them all enter here and rest with you.
Amen.
Amen. What have we got in the Awakening book for 109?
Say, good night, rested one. I rest in God as a thought that heals all suffering and wakens the sleeping truth in you and everyone throughout the world. No more fearful dreams come now that you have chosen peace. Close your eyes, sink into stillness, and whisper sincerely, I rest in God. Sweet dreams of awakening.
I rest in God. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Makes me think of Rupert Spira again, a lovely video where he's talking about God and he says God is a movement and a rest.
Mm.
I think, again, if anyone's interested, I've popped it on the playlists on my YouTube channel, but it really is so gorgeous. And he reads a great big load of Paradise Lost by John Milton to the point where you're watching him going, you remembered all that. It's like
Wow.
he reels off loads of it, and it's bonkers. But yeah, a movement and a rest. I'm not
Mm,
sure if there's some sort of reference to like the Gospel of Thomas or something in there as well, but it's like somebody's asking, how would I describe you? If someone said, God, how would I describe you? And say, oh, as a movement and a rest. And I was like, that's so brilliant, isn't it? Because we've got the extension of the love. But if love's extending in all, I mean, if you think about Einstein's sort of like special relativity, you need two frames of reference. You need the duality to say, if I'm standing still on the train platform and you go by in a train,
right.
you look still to me and I look
Mhm,
still to you, but there's the movement,
mhm.
and it needs the duality of the two frames of reference. So in a sense, with saying God's a movement and a rest, and love extends in all directions, it's almost then becomes a pointless expression of measurement, really, because if there's only extension in all directions, it's what is
And
it?
Einstein got there. Einstein moved on to the everything theory, you know. He lost interest in relativity.
He only had to spend 3 or 4 months in bed to come to that. But
And
he,
lose all of his followers. But so what?
yeah, he would have like had nobody following him on Instagram if he hadn't have posted for 3 or 4 months. He was in bed. The algorithm wouldn't have responded.
That's funny. Einstein on Instagram. I want to say something about Rupert Spira.
Please.
I love Rupert. I love the way that he answers every question.
Mm,
You know, he's not one of these gurus who dismisses certain questions or acts impatient. He's so respectful of everybody.
mm,
And he says the person's name to them, you know, when he's speaking with them. And he often says to people, "You're right about that," or "Yes, what you said." And then he'll tell them what they said. He's listening and he's building people up. You know, there's a way in which he's loving each person who comes to him, and we can all vicariously receive that love as well. You know, if we let ourselves just be the questioner, like, yeah, that person's asking the question, but we're all the same questioner. So there's something about Rupert in that way that he relates to people, while at the same time, you know, he's so intellectual, he's so well versed in literature, and you know, can reel off reams of material that you feel like he didn't even memorize it; it just stuck with him. It's just amazing. So,
I mean,
yeah.
on your mystic, could you remind me the title?
Yeah, I have a website called mysticsandmasters.com.
That's right.
And it's interviews that I've done from time to time when I felt moved. And at one point I thought, oh, I'm meant to do like a Buddha at the gas pump. I'm going to do this. And Mystics and Masters popped out and it was available as a domain name. And I have a bunch of interviews on there. And Rupert's one of them. I
Yeah.
honestly, it was so spontaneous and impromptu when Bill Free and I did those. I think we did 2 interviews that I wish that I would have um, prepared more. Not that I, you know, feel like preparation is so necessary, but I would have chosen some other parts of the course to read to him. And at one point, Rupert said, "A Course in Miracles is abstruse, isn't it?" And I guess it is, but I felt like I wanted to say to him, "Yes, but it's poetry. It's more than abstruse," you know. So, um, yeah, but he was so generous with his time. We just, on the spur of the moment, we were at a retreat with him for a week um, outside San Francisco and
Mm.
asked him, "Would you make yourself available for an interview?" And he said yes. So
Because is it about 7 years ago or something?
Yeah, it's something like that now. Yeah, time flies, especially when it's collapsing.
Yeah, he's got a beautiful way about him. I was really pleased to see that because again, it was another tick for the motivation for today's talk. Was like I said earlier, of like um, thinking about him with that beautiful video where he and you're dead right. You know, he does use that lady's name, and he affirms everything that she has said, and then he very gently says to her, you know, have you ever had an experience that wasn't here,
Mhm.
and lets her, and you know the way the mind will respond to those questions. There has to be a couple of things batted away. No, 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 come on, you know, and then it's comes to that understanding. So yeah.
And by the way, if people are interested, as I said, Bill Free interviewed him with me
Okay.
and went on to do a whole series with Rupert, reading his books. And you could probably find that on Bill Free's
Mhm.
website, which I think might be called awakenwithlove.com now, but it
Okay.
used to be Teachers of God. So, if people want to pursue a way in which Rupert was kind of involved with the Course in Miracles via Bill Free,
Mhm.
it's out there.
Okay, I love that. If they want to rest in God with Bill and Rupert. So I'm going to jump on to lesson 110 now, which is another dreadful one. I am as God created me. Dear me. And it's the second paragraph that I've got 4 little asterisks next to. So I obviously jive with that quite
Yeah, this is an
quite
all-time
lovingly.
favorite.
Yeah, okay. Do you want to read this paragraph? Today's
Which
idea
paragraph?
I've got today's idea is therefore, it's like the second paragraph.
Oh, I see. I am as God created me. Today's idea is therefore for all you need to let complete correction heal your mind and give you perfect vision that will heal all the mistakes that any mind has made at any time or place. It is enough to heal the past and make the future free. It is enough to let the present be accepted as it is. It is enough to let time be the means for which all the world It is enough to let time be the means for all the world to learn escape from time and every change that time appears to bring in passing by. Yeah, these lessons do have a lot of time references.
Yeah, it's amazing. So nice
Yeah,
to hear it.
I see why you like this paragraph. I mean, it just keeps going. If you remain as God created you, appearances cannot replace the truth. Health cannot turn to sickness, nor can death be substituted for life or fear for love. All this has not occurred if you remain as God created you. You need no thought but just this one to let redemption come to light the world and free it from the past. I am as God created me. It's for me, that's a contemplation.
Hmm.
I am. So Jesus is telling me, I am as God created me. I don't have to understand that. I just need to relax into trusting Jesus. And Jesus is saying, I am as God created me, and that's beyond my understanding.
And I rest in God.
Yeah, and I can rest in God and allow myself to marinate in that trust,
Yeah.
in that not knowing, and something opens up,
Mhm.
or something has a click of recognition. Something inside knows what it knows. And that is what the ego wants to zoom past. And that is what A Course in Miracles is slowing us down and saying, pay attention. Don't minimize what just happened inside of you. Notice.
Because this is all like the real non-dual vibe as well. These sort of
Yeah,
five,
definitely.
six, you know.
Yeah, A Course in Miracles is a non-dual path for sure.
But this little passage, this bunch, you know, I think that's when it started to hit me. It might have even been a couple before 106, but certainly this week, it's just like, wow, really feeling the non-dual kind of clarity of this little section. Because what we're about to go into a run on forgiveness as well, I think, you know, sort of after the review. So at the moment, these are about the collapse of time and the non-dual understanding, and just layer upon layer of that one single thought, which is lesson 110, which I am as God created me. And somebody that is pure kindness, shouting that in your ear without shouting it at a volume that hurts your eardrum. He's on a mission to like make sure that you get it in the kindest, nicest way.
Yes.
What have we got in your book for 110, please?
Good night, God's creation. You are as God created you. The healing power of this idea is limitless. It is the birthplace of all miracles. It is the truth that comes to set you free. Tonight, turn the key that opens the gate of heaven and know yourself as God created you. Sweet dreams of awakening.
I think you'll have to read that again. That's so nice.
One more time.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Good night, God's creation. You are as God created you. The healing power of this idea is limitless. It is the birthplace of all miracles. It is the truth that comes to set you free. Tonight, turn the key that opens the gate of heaven and know yourself as God created you. Sweet dreams of awakening.
What's the line that starts with the limitless?
You are as God created you. The healing power of this idea is limitless.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so good, isn't it?
You know, I wrote all these blessings down and over time. And then when I got more serious about, it's meant to be published, and I started looking at everything, I basically was guided to rewrite every single one. So I kind of had the book come through twice. I think first sort of like a practice version, and then the second one, maybe I was just more clear, more available.
Yeah, from a musician's point of view, you did the demo at home on your own, and then you took it to the studio and recorded it properly with all
That's perfect.
the. So another thing that I've got from 110, which I think is really powerful, is it looks like I'm right near the end. Let's say like maybe the second to last paragraph, and we've got well, I might even jump back one, but it's about the idols, you know. Seek him today and find him. He will be your savior from all idols you have made. For when you find him, you will understand how worthless are your idols and how false the images which you believed were you. Today we make a great advance to truth by letting idols go and opening our hands and hearts and minds to God today. So,
Yeah.
in a couple of my own notes to go along with this, it kind of coming back to what I said to you earlier about self-identification without concept, with overlaying thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, just looking, just being becomes knowing. And then with the idols, the sort of expose in lesson 110 about idols, and this idea that we present to ourselves as things, people, places, and events which we tell ourselves are outside of our mind, and the thought is exposed as within the mind all along. So there's something about the double concealment of idols, of like, because it reinforces the projection, and it's the same thing with the ego saying, look past, look future, don't be here now. It's
Yes.
the same thing. It's like, look out there at that person, look at that event, look at that place, look at that
Yeah.
thing. Don't be here now.
I like how you said it's an expose.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, think about it. The whole world, the entire physical world, is a cover up. That's what it is. It's a smoke screen
Yeah.
so that we don't realize that we're a mind, not a body. That in itself to contemplate is too enormous for for anything but some inner knowing to be interested in.
Yeah.
And then to realize that the ego has put one over on us, and told us one thing, which is you better run from God. That's what you need to be afraid of. When actually the ego is like, you better take me seriously, because if you're on to me and you chuckle, I'm gone. And that's what it boils down to.
Fantastic.
Hmm.
Wow, beautiful. Let's have a look what's on this list. So yeah, some other notes I've got here is like, this week's lessons show how the course really does create results. When we get to see its effectiveness by way of the effects it has on us, peace of mind, a gateway to an experience, and then we see that it's not just a theology, not a theory, it's a practical application of a self-study system. Study the self as well as study by yourself.
Mhm. That makes me think of something that a student said in my Wednesday class this week, my Zoom class. Um, we were talking about how when we turn to the Holy Spirit, the body is used as a communication link. And so rather than dragging the Holy Spirit down into the dream, down into the world to fix the world, we turn to the Holy Spirit and ask to be lifted up so that we can see from above the battleground from the Holy Spirit's vision.
Mm,
And one student had an epiphany where he said, he had always thought of being a communication link as, lifting up towards the Holy Spirit. But he hadn't realized until another student was describing something about her own body experience that the Holy Spirit is communicating with us through what we're feeling in the body. That
mm,
the Course says, if you want to know if this is working, what are you feeling? And then it talks about, your forehead should get smooth, there's a smile on your lips, something to that
mm.
effect. You feel at peace,
A bit
and
more serene.
a bit more serene,
Yeah.
and that the body is now used symbolically
Mm,
to experience as much as we can no fear. And if we're not experiencing fear, then we are experiencing joy, peace, love, at the level that we can, because, little by little, it's becoming more and more expansive. So this whole thing about the self-study and your realization around that is just making me think of what happened in class today, where the realization was that the communication link doesn't only go up, it does come down, but as a reflection of God's love. That's what we take back into the world until the dream is entirely over for us.
And that fits in with you saying, receiving is giving, and giving is to receive, and to give are one. It's to also allow yourself the permission to spin that around and see the equal worth of. Again, it's that the direction's kind of irrelevant, really, isn't it? If it's everywhere all at once forever.
Yeah, direction, time, it's all used symbolically
Mm.
for awakening from the dream instead of the ego using it to keep us sleeping in the
Mm.
dream.
And if I think about the sort of handful of um, revelation kind of experiences where I've had a peek behind the veil, they're always representative of how my understanding has sort of increased, if you like, and yet the predominant evidence of that increase is my absence as an identity. If I think about, I can't remember if it's the last one, but it's certainly one that was just so incredibly powerful, and I just wasn't there, but I was there, but I wasn't there, and I wouldn't have interpreted that with an earlier experience where I was sensing the oneness of everything, and I could feel the interconnectedness of creation. But that still had Leon, if you like, going, wow, okay. And then across the years, when the same experience has cropped up, Leon is like diminishing to the point where the most outstanding one in my memory literally is the word outstanding. To stand out is that just absolutely high definition experience of the moment outside of the framework of whatever this is supposed to be.
Mm.
And I just wasn't there. But
Yeah,
I really, really was, and I wasn't.
yeah, yeah. Outstanding.
Outstanding. Wow, blimey. So, what's your crazy word again? Unravelization.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for another unravelization. Hopefully, that will quieten my mind because it's now midnight in the United Kingdom. So,
Wow.
um, yeah, I'm hoping that conversation will quieten my mind, because the other alternative is that I'm going to turn the light out and just be lying there going, wow, fireworks. But yeah,
Thank you, Leon.
really lovely. It's really nice to do something so different as well from the podcast,
Great.
and to see what's in that beautiful book, because yeah, I love that book that you've done. I think that's going to be making its way over to these shores. And I definitely recommend that people have a look at the YouTube channel, because that's got all of the interviews that I've seen up there with the. I'm sorry, I can't grasp this. Can't get the second word all the time. I can remember mystics.
mysticsandmasters.com. But then there's just my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
which I think is Amy Torres, ACIM on
Yeah.
YouTube. That's what I am everywhere, Facebook, where I only just went back to Facebook after 3 years hiatus recently because somebody wanted to interview me there. I think it was on Facebook. We ended up in a Zoom room somehow, but it was also on Facebook. So everything is amytorresacim.com, or you can email me at amytorresacim@gmail.com, or my YouTube channel, I think, is also Amy Torres ACIM.
Well, amazing. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, really, really lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm going to leave it at that for expressions because yeah, I think my gratitude just doesn't need to be confined to words.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, so let's just let that light cast itself around, and thank you very much for bringing all these beautiful gifts to the table, not just for me, but for everyone. And yeah, I know from the comments from last week that so many people found so much joy. There's one lady who's been suffering with COPD or is suffering. So she found the super oxygenated Holy Spirit symbolism really powerful. And then
So
someone
glad.
else, a friend on Facebook, she messaged me privately to say that she found it really beautiful, and she actually sent me the link to somebody who was doing the same meditation of taking the in breath and the out breath. So I was able to send that link to the lady
Oh,
on YouTube who commented.
great. That's
So it's
great.
lovely.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Let's
Yeah.
hope. Well, let's not hope. We know that this will do more of the same.
Let's trust
Let's
that it will be
trust.
more of the same.
I love the purposeful use of language. Brilliant. Amy, amazing.
Back at ya.
Yeah. Take care. Yeah.
Feel better.
Thank you.